You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Good chance to catch up with former Tiger safety Brandon Taylor. Of course, part of that great 2011 defense with the Tigers, a third-round pick of the Chargers, and remember the LSU Sports Radio Network now. BT, good to chat with you, man. How are you?
What's going on, man? I'm doing great, man. How's everything on your end?
Doing great. Excited for some football like everybody, but I think everybody also has this question about the defense and how much better they can be. I want to tap into your experience a little, Brandon, because you were a freshman in 2008. For those that remember, the 2008 defense had a lot of struggles that year. And then John Chavis came in 2009, so it was a change of a defensive coordinator, and the ship really got steadied. Can you remember what it was like, Brandon, that offseason between 2008 and 2009, making the change defensive coordinator, new scheme, new terminology, and trying to get that thing back right? What was that like?
It was basically a breath of fresh air because everybody started with a clean blank slate, and coaches, they had no prejudgment on any player. They took the time to not even watch old film on players. Like what you put in was what you got out. So we started out day one. It was all about the mentality that we wanted to create, and it starts there mentally. John Chavis was a big mental guy, and if you wasn't bought into his process, you were not going to see the field. And he held you accountable in that regard. And the leaders on that team and the leaders on his defenses, that bled down to the younger players. So if you can have the coach with that mindset, and then it bleeds down to the leadership, it'll just fall in place. But you just got to have a nasty mentality as a defense.
From as best you can tell, Brandon, what have been your impressions of Blake Baker so far?
I think he's a high-energy guy, a young coach. So he's going to bring a different aspect as far as he can change with the waves, and hopefully he can adapt to the new offense, new styles of offense, because it's completely different from when I played, which I think the defense that I played on, we was ahead of our time as far as like the style of players that we had and the size of players that we had. And I just think that what he did at Missouri, which was a damn good job, and a lot of people didn't think that was possible. I think that he can, with the caliber players that he'll have at LSU and that he can recruit at LSU, I think that he'll bring the type of mentality that gets us back on track as far as the LSU defense.
Hey, Brandon, what do you mean when you said you felt like you all were ahead of your time back then? What did you mean by that?
So whenever you got time, just pull up the depth chart and look at the size of our DBs and the size of our linebackers. John Chavis, he took a gamble. He moved safeties to linebacker and corners to safety, and moved outside linebackers to DN before anybody done that. Nobody was doing that. We was the first defense to have 220-pound linebackers and 100. I was 190 pounds at safety, 5'11". But I could run and I loved to tackle, and I knew how to communicate. He took a gamble with that, and it paid off dividends, and now you see it across the board, even in the NFL. Players are making changes, position changes, better fit to their body type.
No doubt, man. It's funny you mentioned that. Earlier today, we were talking about this kid LSU that his name's Jaden Breaker, is a linebacker from Georgia that LSU just flipped from South Carolina. And he's 6'3", 210. And I was like, man, that feels like a throwback to Taj Jones and Lamine Barrow and guys like that. And I hate to call it a throwback, but kind of does feel a little bit like that when you've seen guys like Devin White and Kendall Beckwith and dudes like that roll through here, of late. But yeah, man, I mean, it does kind of feel a little bit like that. When you look at the personnel on this defense, Brandon, like, do you see enough, like, just ability there for them to be a really great defense again?
I do. It's because I get where you coming from with it, with his size, and a lot of people look at it that way. But you want players on the field that can cover as much ground as quickly as possible. So you want somebody that's quick, fast, can get there with aggression, and just wreak havoc. And right now, the game is changing from more of a physical style game to like a more finesse. You got to be fast. You have to be fast on defense because these offensive players and the schemes that they're running, they're just blowing by people, and you don't have the advantage as a defensive player to put your hands on them and control them like we used to back in the day. I could jam somebody up and go sit him by his coach and not get a flag. Nowadays, you can't touch him. You can't touch him, so you have to have speed on the field. So you're not going to see these big, stocky linebackers like Kelvin Shepard like you used to see back in the day. Like, you have to be able to run. You may get a freak of nature like a Devin White that can go out there and run a 4.3, but that's every 10 years you find a player like that.
Yeah, there was a reason he was the fifth pick of the draft. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to recruit a certain style and finesse, but as a coach, you have to get them aligned in and get them all on the same accord and let them know, like, it got to be applied in the off season before anything. Like, you can't click it on the game day. Like, you have to have the mentality like, look, it's me versus this person, and I'm not going to lose. No pouting, no pointing the finger, none of that.
Brandon Taylor's our guest, former LSU safety, 3-year starter. Guy was a senior on that great 2011 defense. But now you hear him on the LSU Sports Radio Network. I know this has been talked about so much, Brandon, but I'm curious your thought about the idea of moving Harold Perkins back inside and how you think that might go this year.
I think it'll go well. They just going to have to take the time with him and put in the extra work, because I know a lot of people are mad at it, but this is the norm at LSU. A lot of players have switched positions, and it's always turned out. Look at Barkevius Mingo. He was a stand-up outside linebacker. They moved him to DN, and look at the numbers he done. It's one of them things where you got to be adapt. You got to be able to adjust and overcome. That don't mean that he's gonna stay in the inside. They can move him around. You just can't be predictable with it. And I think that's what Coach Baker's trying to do. He's trying to take the being predictive about, and because the thing is, wherever he's at, they're going to have to scheme against him. So I would rather them have to scheme against him in the inside and the outside than just being on the outside, because you could take him out of the game if you just leave him in one spot.
I want to ask about the secondary, and I saw this earlier today, BT. It's crazy. The Thorpe Award watch list came out, right, which goes to the best defensive back in college football, and there's 50 names on it. And there's not one guy from LSU on that list. Tell me why I should think this secondary is going to be better than they were a year ago.
Accountability. Because Raymond recruits to replace. Because when I came there my freshman year, he was the assistant DB coach. And I know people are the godfather of DBUs out of. The godfather of DBU is Corey Webster, Jesse Daniels, LaRon Landry. Those are the godfathers of DBU. And that's not a coach. That was a mentality, and that was brought in by players only. Yeah, you had certain coaches that coached those players, but the 03 DBs, that's DBU. So you got Corey Raymond, who's been around all those group of guys, and he's going to bring in the mentality that everybody can be replaced. And I'm recruiting to replace you, whether you like it or not. And that's what's going to hold kids accountable, not just giving them anything. Raymond's played in the NFL, which is a cutthroat business. It's a what have you done for me lately business. And that's what college football needs to be. And that's what LSU needs to get back to being, because the reason I played so hard, because I had a Craig Lawson behind me. I had a Ronald Martin behind me. Craig Lawson was the best thing since sliced bread coming out of high school. When he was a 5-star recruit at safety. Coach Coop kept throwing it in my face at practice. Brandon, I'm bringing somebody in to replace you. I said, I better be put in the dirt. Yeah, I better have a funeral next week, because I'm not walking out this field, nobody taking my spot. And you got to have that mentality. You just can't give it to anybody just because they've been there or anything like that. You got to recruit to replace, And that's the type of mentality that Raymond brings into that room, and he's going to hold everybody accountable. If you're not fit for the job, you're not fit for the job. You got to look in the mirror at that point. It's not me as a coach.
Brandon, how much of the gap can be filled from accountability, as you said, and looking over your shoulder, right? When that and the talent gap, meaning I can look at NFL scouting reports for next year, and there's no LSU DBs on it. So if you don't have if you're not built like Patrick Peterson, right? How much of that gap can be filled by the intangibles you just talked about?
So that, with being said, the right that they thought that people think that they have, this go to LSU fans, this go to you, Matt Moscona, this go to me. Just because you play DB at LSU, ain't nobody giving you shit.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, you come to LSU, oh, that's DBU. No, the players that played there and got drafted into the NFL made LSU DBU, not LSU. It's a give and a take, but you got to look at the men that got drafted into the NFL that played DB at LSU. They were cut from a different cloth. So you think you're going to come to LSU as this, I don't matter how many stars you got, because the best DB that ever came through LSU was a freaking 2-star, and that's Tyron and Mo Claiborne. And it don't matter, because you got to come in and put the work, because the guys that laid that foundation, they were about batshit crazy. All of us had a little screw loose. You guys, any coach that was around was like, we were arrogant and cocky because we knew the work that we put in, but we never said a word about it. You didn't see nothing on social media. You didn't see us talking trash to nobody until we got inside the white lines. When we got inside the white lines, it was on. Everything was on played in. But off the field, it was respect, it was hard work, it was film study, and we held people accountable. And the reason we were DBU was because if I was on the field and Craig blew a play and I knew he didn't know the play, hey, Papa, you got to get out of here. You got to get off the field. Go get yourself together. Hey, Coach Coop, get this guy in. He ain't ready. He ain't studied this week. You're not about to embarrass me and this group because of your lack of preparation that you're supposed to take upon yourself. People always, the coach didn't get him right. He's this. Like, no, you a grown man. You got a playbook. Look at it. Learn it. And if a coverage is blown, you never throw your hands up in the air and you never point the finger. You address that outside the stadium, in the locker room. And nobody needs to know about it. No media, your parents, none of that. That building and your locker room is supposed to be locked tight.
Definitely got away from that a year ago, man.
Yeah, so the reason that there aren't DBs in the draft stock because they ain't earned it yet. You got to go get it. You got to put your name on there. Look at look at the film. Do anybody deserve to be on that mat? Be honest with yourself.
Of course not.
Okay. So that's where it starts. You have to be honest with yourself first, and then that's when you can build on that foundation and become a better player. Because if you just looking for somebody to give you something and this and that, and truth be told, LSU DBs are the most hated people in the NFL anyway, because people envy you. Because you everywhere. DBU everywhere. It's always a debate. When I went to San Diego, all the guys from the West Coast that played at USC and Clemson and all this, they looked at me side-eyed until we got on the field and they seen what I was about. And then I got the respect. They knew the name. But when we got on the practice field and I was out there going crazy, no matter who it was, okay, all right, he for real. And they ain't have to say a word. And that's the mentality we got to get back to. And I pray to God that Corey Raymond get back to it, which I know he can. Everybody just has to be bought in.
Start to get those answers tomorrow, man, when they hit the practice field for the first time. Brandon Taylor, you hear him on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Of course, was DB at LSU from 08 to 2011. Hey, man, we'll have to do this again throughout the season, man. Always appreciate your time. We'll visit soon, okay?
Oh, likewise, man. You have a good one.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.